What happens when you stay single too long? Staying single for a long time is often romanticized in modern culture. It's portrayed as freedom, a life without compromise, drama, or emotional dependence. And indeed, prolonged singleness can lead to profound self-awareness, autonomy, and personal growth. But there's a paradox: the same independence that protects you from heartbreak can also isolate you from connection. Over time, the single lifestyle reshapes not only your habits, but also your psychology. It influences how you think, attach, trust, and even how you experience love itself. This isn't about whether being single is good or bad. It's about understanding how long-term solitude rewires your emotional patterns. For better or worse, emotional autonomy turns into emotional detachment. In the beginning, being single fosters emotional self-sufficiency. You learn to comfort yourself, regulate your emotions, and build stability without relying on external validation. But after years of practicing self-soothing and independence, many people unconsciously become emotionally detached. They stop sharing vulnerability. Their walls become permanent architecture instead of temporary protection. When someone finally comes along who wants closeness, it can feel like an invasion rather than intimacy. The mind resists the very thing it once longed for: connection, because it now associates independence with safety. Psychological effect: emotional hyper-independence, difficulty bonding or trusting others with emotional depth. Routine becomes a comfort zone that feels like a fortress. Being single gives you full control over your schedule, space, and habits. But that autonomy, if left unchecked, becomes a psychological fortress. You start to arrange your world around personal convenience. You don't have to compromise, negotiate, or consider another person's needs. Over time, you stop wanting to. This isn't selfishness. It's adaptation. The brain forms neural patterns around predictability and control. So when a potential partner enters your life, their mere presence can feel disruptive. Behavioral symptom: resistance to change, discomfort with emotional or logistical compromise, irritability in shared environments. The fear of losing peace outgrows the desire for love. Seeking love. Open heart. Protecting tranquility. Closed space. People who stay single for years often achieve a peaceful rhythm, minimal drama, stable mood, predictable days. But love, by its nature, introduces chaos. It challenges your ego, exposes your insecurities, and disrupts your balance. After prolonged peace, the brain begins to equate love with danger and solitude with safety. Emotional stillness becomes so sacred that any form of emotional intensity, even positive, feels like a threat. The internal dialogue changes from "I want love" to "I don't need anyone." Self-sufficiency as identity. When you've been single for a long time, self-sufficiency turns into identity. You start believing that needing someone is weakness. You tell yourself, "I'm fine alone," which is partly true, but sometimes it's a defense against disappointment. Avoidant tendencies. This mindset can unconsciously create avoidant attachment tendencies. You crave intimacy but fear dependency, so you attract emotionally unavailable partners or subconsciously sabotage potential connections. Emotional dynamic. Independence used as armor, not expression of true confidence. Social skills become rusty in subtle ways. Long-term singleness doesn't only affect emotional patterns, it reshapes social habits. When you're not regularly engaging in deep partnership communication, you can lose subtle interpersonal calibration, tone, empathy, timing, emotional attunement. You may find it harder to read cues, negotiate disagreements, or stay open during emotional confrontation. It's not that you're bad at relationships, it's that your brain hasn't practiced relational attunement in a while. Preference for solitude. Quick withdrawal. During conflict. Difficulty navigating. Emotional nuance. Behavioral outcome. Preference for solitude. Quick withdrawal during conflict. Difficulty navigating emotional nuance. The idealized image of a partner becomes unrealistic. The longer you remain single, the more your mind starts building an ideal, a perfect partner that doesn't exist. This fantasy is part defense, part desire. It protects you from disappointment but also raises your standards to impossible levels. As a result, real people, with real flaws, moods, and emotional depth, can never measure up. The body adapts to aloneness. Solitude doesn't just affect the mind, it physically conditions your nervous system. When you live alone for years, your nervous system regulates differently. There's less oxytocin, the bonding hormone, less dopamine fluctuation from social reward, and a more consistent but emotionally neutral state. So when someone new enters your space, even affection can feel overstimulating. Your body literally needs to relearn how to regulate with another person present. Reduced oxytocin sensitivity. The bonding hormone is less active. Heightened self-regulation. Nervous system is tuned for solitude. Lower tolerance for emotional unpredictability. Neuropsychological impact, reduced oxytocin sensitivity, heightened self-regulation, lower tolerance for emotional unpredictability. You become more spiritually self-contained and sometimes existentially lonely. On a higher level, long-term singleness often brings deep self-reflection. You grow spiritually, develop inner peace, and learn to find meaning in solitude. But even spiritual solitude has limits. Humans are neurologically wired for connection, to see themselves reflected in another's eyes. Without that mirror, even the strongest individuals can experience existential loneliness, not the fear of being alone, but the quiet ache of not being seen. Emotional consequence, stable but flat effect, peaceful life without emotional aliveness. Re-entry into love feels like learning a foreign language. After years alone, dating again is disorienting. You're fluent in solitude, in quiet routines, personal rituals, and private peace. Love feels like a foreign language you once knew but forgot the grammar of. You may overthink, overanalyze, or pull back when connection deepens. Not because you don't want it, but because your nervous system and emotional memory have forgotten how to synchronize with another. Emotional stage, cautious vulnerability, intellectual understanding of love without embodied trust. The cure, integration, not abandonment of solitude. The solution isn't to rush into a relationship out of fear of loneliness. nor is it to glorify permanent detachment. The healthiest path is integration, to bring the depth, peace, and self-sufficiency gained in solitude into connection with others. Long-term singleness is not a curse. It's a powerful training ground. But it must evolve. The lesson is not to stay alone forever. It's to learn how to love without losing yourself. Conclusion: the silent transformation. Staying single too long changes you, not always in visible ways, but in emotional reflexes, cognitive patterns, and the stories you tell yourself about love. You become calmer, wiser, more grounded, but also more self-protective. The key is awareness, because when solitude hardens into self-isolation, what once was freedom becomes a cage disguised as peace. Love, in its mature form, isn't the opposite of independence. It's the evolution of it, where two complete individuals choose to meet, not to fill emptiness, but to share fullness.